Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Sorry, Constance and I were just having such a great discussion. I was like, we really have to go. So we're very warmed up and we're ready to go. Well, welcome to episode 148, and welcome to the third anniversary of Into the Outer Realm. So it was 3 years ago, right around this time, that Tanya and I launched this project at the invitation of Matt and Kelly at Skydoor Network. We were with them for about 8 months, and then for various reasons, we decided to go radio only. And we were with a couple of radio shows. That's when we were first picked up by ERT Radio, who we're still with. You can always hear the replays on ERT Radio Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're very grateful to Ronald for that. And then November of that first year, we decided to launch our own project. Still Into the Outer Realms. The brand has never changed, but some different changes. And the opening, which I'm about to play, has gone through some iterations. Remember that the music is by our son Jeremy, and we're very proud and grateful for that. So there's so much to cover tonight. Let me just say thank you for being with the show, helping it grow over the past 3 years, 148 episodes. This year, I'm up to some really interesting things, and I think they're going to inform the shape that the show takes, which I'm super excited about. Next week is Sinister Mysteries number 8 with my colleague Craig Ansell. Constance was on with Craig and the Three Beards a week ago. So we work very closely together, and we're going to be bringing you Sinister Ministries. So Heaven's Gate and the People's Temple, a crazy operation that happened out in Oregon, actually, while Craig was living there, not too far away from where it happened, and some others, of course, the Branch Davidians. So without further ado, I'm going to roll the opening for Into the Outer Realms and come back and jump in with Constance. Good evening, everyone.
There exists a realm beyond our wildest dreams, a realm beyond reality that the gatekeepers and guardians have always told us consists of nothing but tricks of the eye, weather balloons, swamp gas, sand cranes, fairy tale myths of monsters, crackpot conspiracy theories, and desperate cries for attention.
We know this realm exists, and it's just beyond the horizon. The preset path, the well-worn walkways where the cynics want us to stay.
Instead, give this a listen. Put on your headphones, adjust your volume, close your eyes, and fasten your mental seatbelts, because the twilight-tinged turnoff from reality's alluring highway is looming just ahead.
We're about to leave the plane of the easily explained, couldn't possibly be's, and the no way I just saw what I saw's, for the spaces and places where everything is possible, and if you stay long enough, even probable. We're about to take a journey into the outer realms.
So we're not going too far into the outer realms tonight. We're going to the moon, and we're going with a true expert, author of The Moon's Galactic History, a look at the moon's extraterrestrial past and its connection to Earth. And normally when a guest returns, I don't go through their bio, but the moon is an interesting and, more importantly, a very controversial subject. What is going on up there? Why are NASA administrators saying try to make claim parts of it this year? Why have we exploded rockets against it? That was in 2009. What is the deal with the Van Allen belt? Can ships get safely through, or can't they get? There doesn't seem to be any agreement. And then you have the structures. You have Ingo Swan's penetration, where he says he remote viewed the moon and saw beings looking back at him, which, by the way, should not happen in a remote viewing session. So, a lot going on. We just had Artemis launch at great expense and a very grandiose idea for this mission, hundreds of billions of dollars. We're going to talk about all of that with Constance. So she's so patient in the green room and so ready to go. So let's do this bio. Constance Victoria Briggs is an author, researcher, and guest speaker on cosmic and metaphysical topics. She specializes in moon mysteries and phenomena, and we're so grateful to have her with us tonight. She's the author of many books, but the Encyclopedia of Angels, the Encyclopedia of God, the Encyclopedia of the Unseen World, of course, the Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries, Secrets, Conspiracies, Theories, Anomalies, Extraterrestrials, and more. When she was my guest in September around this time, that's exactly what she talked about. She's been on radio shows, podcasts, YouTube shows. She's been keeping so busy. If you follow her on Facebook, you really should. She's been up to a lot. Talking about angels, extraterrestrials, ancient astronauts, life after death communication, out-of-body experiences, and of course, the moon mystery. She's been on Coast to Coast. She's been on Midnight Society. She's been on every podcast that matters, all the really big ones. And so I'm grateful that she's on our little show here tonight. She certainly keeps very busy. She was recently a guest speaker at the popular Total Disclosure Inner Truth Summit. It's Briggs' goal to investigate the mysteries of the universe, how they connect to humanity. And she says, even though I'm sure she'll tell us this herself tonight, there's more to our universe than we've been taught. We need to look deeper and search further if we want to know the truth of who we are, where we come from, and what lies beyond. Boy, is that the mission statement of Into the Outer Realms, or what? Good evening, my friend.
Hi, how are you, Joey?
I am honored that you are here. I meant everything I said. You do all the big shows, and you've come back here for a second time. So I'm very grateful to help us with our anniversary tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me a second time. And congratulations on your anniversary. That's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you. Thank you. And I feel like in some ways we're just learning and really getting started. But let's start with, and if we talked about this last time, I don't really care. What you've invested so much time in an encyclopedia, which is just exhaustive, and this book and your other projects are now touring around. And I know you have a family and you have other things. What is it about the moon that keeps you coming back?
So basically, I want us to reach a point in this country, in this world, that we finally can acknowledge that we're not alone in the universe. And I believe that the moon is the easiest place for us to visit at the moment, uh, when it comes to that topic because of its close proximity. I find it amazing that my entire life, I didn't know that there were so many strange things going on with the moon. And my questioning whether we were alone in the universe, are there extraterrestrials visiting Earth? I didn't know that right above our heads, they may be there. So I'm continually fascinated by that. And I'm also kind of on a mission to, open people's minds and their eyes, and because more people should know about the strange things going on with the moon.
Right. There you go. So with that mission to convince, that's what's really impressed me. Folks, I think, and I took it out of my notes, but it was in the book review that I did for this book. So go to New Mystics, read the book review. But I think it's 26 or 28 pages to bibliography. I mean, you have so much great research. When you do the moon photos, you actually give us the numbers, because if you search these online, just going structures on the moon, so many photos have been scrubbed.
So many photos have been scrubbed, and I have to say that I've written these two different books, and they do have different information.
Yeah.
So that just tells you that there's a lot out there, to get your hands on if you're looking for the information. everything apparently has, we hear about NASA hiding things and tossing pictures and, in the 60s, Xing them out with markers and all of this. But some did leak through. We did have researchers and whistleblowers from NASA that stole, kept. In one case, a person was told to destroy pictures, and he said to himself, "No way!" And he held on to them. And years later, he came forward. By that time, I don't think any of them really, I want to say, really cared as much. A lot of these people who were doing this cover up, I feel like, have died off.
Yeah.
Um, so
And we're moving towards disclosure, which is a thorny subject, and I don't want to go sideways because we have a lot to cover. But just the fact that whistleblowers are now being protected. It's right in the legislature, right? It's right in these documents that whistleblowers. So I want the big criticism of the first report that came out about a year and a half ago in the summer. We were also anxious and waiting, and we're terribly disappointed. Was that they didn't go back far. They only kind of went from the Tic Tacs and all that. Now, supposedly, they're supposed to go back. So Roswell's becoming hot button again. And who knows, maybe we'll get some of this from the few astronauts that are left from the Apollo mission to really, because Buzz, I want to talk about Buzz a little later, but you talk about all the hot button topics. It really is a catalog of encounters, sightings, evidence of anomalous events. And this goes all the way back. You have a great book, if you could show the audience a report from NASA that goes all the way back to the 1500s.
Oh, yeah. So, everybody, one of my favorite things to show people, because you can get this on Amazon. All right. So, this is the NASA Lunar Technical Report. All right. So, this is a report that was, it's a compilation of astronomers who kept track all the way back to the 1600s of what they were seeing on the moon. Most of it was, a lot of it was recorded by the British Astronomical Society, which goes back, a long way. And NASA commissioned this report and a couple of others when they understood there were strange things going on with the moon. So this was classified. I don't know how many years ago it was declassified, and it's my understanding that some are regretting over there that they did declassify it. But you can look at it and see the names of these very well-known, famous astronomers that were highly respected. What they saw by way of lights moving, and I was saying to Joey earlier, I'll just say UFOs. They listed them as lights moving across the surface, above the lunar surface. During lunar eclipse, they saw lights moving. They've seen lights in craters. And when I say lights, I'm not talking about little white lights all over the place. I'm talking about different geometric shapes, colors. Some would witness them for a couple of hours, some for 15 minutes. That's how detailed the report is that they gave. Where on the surface, in the craters, where on the moon, in the craters, around the craters, lines moving. In one case, they listed mist, fog, objects, black objects, all kinds of amazing things in that report. And I was saying to Joey earlier that they knew, way back when, before they even sent men up, that there was something going on.
Yeah, and that's going to come into play later in our conversation. So what year was that report?
Wow.
Roughly.
That escaped me. So
Okay.
I would like to roughly say it is here. Well, it was 68.
Oh, okay.
68 that they published it.
Yeah.
68 that they published it. I was going to say 65, so I was a little off, but yeah, it was 68. So yeah, before they sent people up, they knew.
Wow. So you jump right into the first chapter called The Moon's Mysterious Ascension. What could you take us briefly through, like, the leading theories about how the moon got there?
Yeah. So basically, if I go into all of the theories in detail, it'll take up the whole show.
Right.
But
Just a
I will say that, you know, in our modern times we have five theories that have all been dismissed. With the most popular two theories were the capture theory, which I grew up thinking that the moon had been captured by Earth's gravity, which they dismissed. Um, and then the most popular one being the giant impact theory, where we are taught that the moon had a planet crash into it about the size of Mars named Theia, and that I don't know, the moon crashed into Earth. And excuse me, the planet the size of Mars crashed into Earth, and then Earth's material flew out into space when it hit, and the moon was formed for that. So excuse me for my forgetting there for a second. That was what we have been taught in most recently. And I was listening to a program the other night on Netflix. It's called The Universe, and they were saying that, but that is a theory that has been dismissed, and I was a little bit annoyed while Morgan Freeman was narrating that, and I was saying to my husband, no, 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 that's a theory. He's saying it like that's fact. That's not a fact. It has not been confirmed.
right.
In fact, if you go on NASA's website, they will tell you, it says that they think that's how, you know, words to that effect, that they think that's possibly how it happened. There's nothing definitive about it. And now the scientists are saying, well, you know, if the moon were formed from a planet smacking into Earth, there would be more of Earth mixed in with the moon.
Right.
And if that's not the case. So the really long story short, they don't know how the moon got here. They don't know where it came from. My personal favorite is the spaceship moon theory. And so if we go back to your question about the Earth's ascension, you know, we kind of move into that theory, that spaceship moon theory, that has become very, very is popular. It's being looked at more closely, because there was a time in Earth's history where ancient philosophers out of Greece and Rome talked about uh, there being a time where there was no moon in the sky.
Yeah.
They talk about a time where Venus was the most the thing that shined most brightly at night. They talk about a time when there were a people named the Arcadians that lived before the time of Jove, Jove being the god Jupiter, where the worship of Jupiter goes way back. Before then, these people lived and existed. And they said that they were one of the philosophers, I think it was Ovid, OVID, I think it was him, but it's in the book. I get the philosophers a little bit mixed up sometimes where I'm quoting them. But they were saying that these people, the Arcadians, lived wildly. It was before they were cultured, when they were living off the land, and they, you know, they weren't wearing clothes, and you know, they didn't even use horses or, you know, animals back then. They were just wild people. And you could see that if we're going back that far in Earth's past, that would have been that seems appropriate a time to describe the people that were known then to be, you know, kind of wild at that time. So as we've moved up through we move up through history, you know, we've come into these writings about these people in this time where there was no moon. So for me, that makes sense, because there are some stories out there that talk about a time when the moon came in. And that leads into, again, I say, the spaceship moon theory. We have the Sun Gate of Bolivia, uh, where there is an ancient structure standing, a stone structure that weighs tons, that has symbols on it, and writings that talk about a time when there was no moon, and the moon came in to Earth, and it created all of this chaos. That goes along with what the Greeks were saying in ancient times. This thing is still standing. They believe that it was a part of a planetarium at that time, of some sort. And, you know, that's where they went, you know, to learn. So that's standing. I don't believe that those people were playing a hoax on us, or just, you know, writing gibberish. So I put that with the Greek and the Roman philosophers and what they were saying. So, and then we have another story. And there's a few, but this one is out of Africa, an ancient story from the Zulu tribe. Everybody tried to come up with tales of explaining where this thing came from because it wasn't there before. And so the Zulu people, apparently, it seems like they had some inside information because they said in their story that they likened the moon to it being an egg, and that this egg was hollowed out, and that it was sent across the universe and placed in Earth's vicinity. They actually gave the description of two beings, and they did describe them as being reptilian-like, and placing it here. And of course, that has been interpreted as the moon having perhaps once been a planetoid.
Mm.
A planetoid that was hollowed out and turned into some sort of mega structure or a spaceship. So when we come up into modern history, there were two Soviet scientists that worked for the government who put their reputations on the line, and they said from what they learned from NASA astronauts going up, it looks like the moon is a spaceship. They believed it to be hollowed out with machinery in it, and possibly more likely a group of beings in it that are surviving in there. Whether or not, of course, they're still there, we don't know. But that was this was in the 70s that they said this. And I thought, wow, that's pretty much what the Zulu people said.
Yeah.
It goes along with what the ancients said. And you have to wonder if the Zulu people themselves had some sort of extraterrestrial contact or communication, because in history we have seen when you look at the Dogon tribe, for example, who got information on Sirius B, we have seen where other tribes of people have said they were visited, Native Americans, from beings in the sky that gave them information.
Right.
So I hope that's a long way to
Yeah.
answer your question.
No, and it's wonderful. And so we have throughout our history and throughout cultures, we have this story. Ronald, you were asking specifically about, is it a spaceship? Well, there you go. That theory is prevalent. And I'll go you one or additional. I'll go off world. So 5 weeks ago, we had Samuel Chong on, who has translated the Theuba prophecies about a man named Michel Desmarquet. I believe in the 90s. Was taken up for 10 days with an advanced race. And in that book, they tell him that the moon was used when there were problems on Earth. The moon was used to have people inhabit it. Now, with the hollowed out moon, then, does that play into the ringing like a bell phenomena?
Well, I mean, I'm no scientist, but the scientists in NASA, when that first happened, they were shocked. Some people think this is a conspiracy or something that stories people made up. No, it ran like made up that said, oh, it's hollow. No, the NASA astronauts came out, not astronauts, officials came out in a public statement and said that the moon rang like a bell. It didn't ring literally; it reverberated, and they couldn't figure it out. They didn't understand it. And one of them said, oh, I'd rather not comment on that because we can't understand it. This shouldn't be happening. The moon should not be ringing. And they've never been able to, explain it. And they've stopped addressing it pretty much. And they don't talk about anything now. But yeah, so if, the theory is that uh, there's a city in there, there's, civilization of some sort, living inside of there. That's why, it was hollowed out. There are all kinds of theories. When it was brought here or sent here, were there beings living inside of it? Did they come here in a generational ship? Were these beings trying to escape a catastrophe on their planet, maybe a dying sun, and they, created this thing? It's been likened to Noah's Ark, that, a race of beings jumped into it, and built it, jumped into it, and headed out. And maybe Earth was their destination, because who knows, maybe the Earth And it's all speculation, of course, but maybe the Earth was closest to what they saw or what they knew, and they parked it here. And for all we know, they could have come here and taken ships down, and we could we could have been a part of that race, right? In our modern times, we have seen, at least some of us have seen, footage of what looks like spaceships exiting the moon, even a hole in the moon, or a big opening in the moon, where it looks like some sort of ships are coming out. It could be that they did that way back then, and that they're still coming and going today. And it could be hidden from us because something's going on. All we know is something's happening. So we have all these speculations that seem kind of fantasy, but they say truth is stranger than fiction, even. Because we do have all these past accounts, and then we have what looks like in the past and today, ships. So they think that it could be a place where people are living. Another speculation is that the moon, there may not be anyone living on the moon, but maybe it is a stopover, sort of a port where people, there may be beings coming to visit planet Earth and are stopping through there. Because when we look on Earth today, we're seeing all kinds of different, UFOs and different kinds of them, cylinder shaped, triangular shaped, circular ones. And there's a thought that maybe they're stopping through the moon for what at the moon as a kind of way station, and then coming to Earth. Another, can I go on, Joey?
Please do.
Just
Yeah,
rambling
yeah. You're the guest. It's perfect. It's
on.
perfect.
Jump in there, Joey. I don't want
No,
to take over your show.
no, you're the guest and the returning guest, so you have privileges.
No, so there is another thought, and I've got a short time to get this in. Another thought is that it may be a kind of a duck blind where there are beings there. A duck blind, folks, is a when people go hunting, they have a camouflage up, to hunt the duck. So I called it a duck blind in the book, and where they've camouflaged this mega structure, or a spaceship, or whatever you want to call it, to look like a natural object, but really isn't, and they're there to watch us.
Yeah.
All right, they're there to take notes on us for whatever reason. Maybe they're just some scientist out there that wanted to watch us, and maybe that is a center for extraterrestrials coming and going, and doing some kind of weird research. Or it could have been, it could be beings that seeded Earth, because there is a theory that the Earth was terraformed,
Mhm.
and that perhaps they are there watching our progress. There's a theory that the moon maybe have protectors of Earth, because strange things have happened here. For example, there are stories about asteroids being moved that almost hit the Earth.
Yes.
There are stories of bombs being disarmed. There are stories of beings intervening in some wars. People have named some of these beings, call them angels. And these, there have been wars that people that, were just interrupted by strange beings. And even today in the Ukraine, they're talking about seeing mysterious objects in the skies. That's even
Yeah.
been in the mainstream. Now, I don't know what's going on there, but there is a theory that protectors of Earth could be there, because Earth is considered very special in metaphysics. I've studied the other side, and some of the information that has come in is that Earth is very special because all of the life on it, and that there may be protectors, of us, of here. And who knows, it could be positioned on the moon. It may sound far-fetched, but I think that we need to start a conversation somewhere, just like having a town hall meeting, and talk about all of the theories that are of what this could be, because the stories behind it and the evidence that we have coming out of this space missions are very strange. So why not talk about it? Why not know what's going on right above our heads.
That's right. Certainly after the Trinity test and the detonation of the atom bombs and so on and so forth, that becomes a very big deal. That kind of puts you next level in the universe when you master that. Anything to do with the atom, harnessing the atom, splitting the atom. So I certainly believe, although I mean it goes all the way back to where is it now? Like 480 BC, they were talking about strange anomalous things on the moon, right? What did I do here? Anyway, I want to keep it moving forward. But so I really do believe in that watcher theory. Paul Davenport at New Fork has done a wonderful job about talking about all the reports he's gotten from the military about nuclear subs being shut down. Dave Politis just came out with a new 411 and missing 411, and he's now talking about the alien aspect, which he stayed away from for decades. He's talking about it now because he can talk about it, and these ideas are just becoming more mainstream. They're becoming more palatable, which is wonderful. So let's talk about. I don't know if you have the book with you, but I'll maybe flip through too. But let's talk about these sometimes often scrubbed NASA photos. What are the ones that really, where you go, look, guys, if you just look, it's clearly here. Do you have some favorites? Some favorite photos of possible structures and things?
Not in the book, not in all of my, I mean, the book it has photos, but everything isn't in here. And certainly, all my favorites didn't make it in, but I do name them in the Moon Mysteries book. There is one, and I believe that it was Apollo, excuse me, before they even hit the moon. It was Apollo 7, and I don't. Oh shoot! I don't know which book they're in. Joey, I do so much research. One of
Oh,
the
I
books.
know.
It is the one I I call it the tape the tape cover up. Um, which one was it? Apollo 7. Let's throw it out there while we're looking for it. So Apollo 7 or Apollo 8, one of the moon missions had when they first went up. Let's see, when they first went up, they were preparing for Apollo 11. So each of the missions had to, they had some sort of duty. In this case, they were just orbiting. I believe they were just orbiting the Earth, and they stumbled across this amazing looking UFO. And I apologize. It was Apollo 7, 8, or 9, and I can't remember it. But they stumbled across this magnificent UFO that, has been called angelic shaped or like a butterfly. I mean, it wasn't a saucer. It was kind of strange looking, well, they're all strange looking, but it was just huge. Anyway, the astronauts took a picture of this thing, and then someone tried to cover this up, and so they didn't have the ability that we have today to kind of sophisticatedly get rid of things. So they took masking tape, black masking tape,
Yeah.
and covered up this picture. I see in one of the books somewhere, and so they thought they had succeeded. However, one picture escaped. They were able to cover this up, but in this one you see, and you can find it online, and it's really an amazing shot of a UFO. We hadn't even made it to the moon before we ran into that thing. And I think that is my favorite story because it's so funny that they tried to cover it up with masking tape and they couldn't.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with that one. It's really something, and we're not talking all throughout the Apollo missions. I think also into Gemini and Mercury too. It wasn't one astronaut. It wasn't one or two or three rogue astronauts. Edgar Mitchell talked about this stuff. Buzz Aldrin talks tantalizingly about this stuff, depending on what day, where he goes, "Oh, we never even went," or he says, "There's a structure on the moon off of Mars." He
Right,
says
right, right.
all things, but then he punches people in the nose. When
Well,
they say,
he's allowed to talk about Mars.
Yeah.
He's not allowed to talk about the moon. They had to sign those agreements saying,
Yeah.
we're not going to talk. So he can talk about all Mars all he wants to, but not the moon.
There you
You
go.
know? But so yeah, I mean, he according to history, historical rumor or reports, he had some interesting experiences, but he will not acknowledge them. Other people have acknowledged them. People, NASA personnel. Oh God, in my new book, I call it my smoking gun.
Ooh.
Where yeah, so that was there was a man who used to work for NASA. He created mission control. And yeah, this time I have it, people. I have it. It's it's on page 219 of my book, and I call it Apollo 11's smoking gun. So this gentleman by the name of Christopher Kraft was the person who initiated the whole mission control thing, and he worked with the Apollo 11 astronauts and others. And he came forward years after working there, and he told what Aldrin and Armstrong had seen on the moon. And there is dialogue, here from the astronauts, where they're saying, oh, he said that they said those things are giant things. This is not an optical illusion, reporting this to mission control. No one is going to believe this. And then control is saying, what the H is happening? What's wrong with you? And they're saying, they're here, they're here. And he says, what? They're saying, what's there? And the astronauts are saying, we saw some visitors. They were there for a while observing the instruments. Mission control is saying, repeat your last information. And the astronaut said, I say there were other spaceships. They're lined up on the side of the crater. Now, it goes on. I can't read it all here. But this information came from Christopher Kraft, and he was closely associated with them. And if you can't trust a man who worked with the astronauts and who practically started mission control, then who can you trust?
Right.
If so, that's what he said about Aldrin and Armstrong. Going back to Aldrin, now it's my understanding, even up to this day, that you're not supposed to talk about things like that when you
Right.
work for NASA. This isn't news. This is even up the ISS, who are also seeing strange things up there, are not allowed to talk about them. What's interesting with those guys is that they have a camera going at all times. And people have seen things and they just deny it. No, 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 no. That wasn't that. No. And then you see a couple of times you see where astronauts up there are trying to cover the camera where they've
Yeah.
been doing their walk or whatever. So the fact that Aldrin and Armstrong and others, didn't talk about it is you know is bothersome. But we still have other people who were there, who were on the ground, who were at mission control when the all of the astronauts went up. So that's my long-winded Buzz Aldrin
No,
story.
that's terrific. And Gordon Cooper has been vocal. Even he saw things on Earth. He saw spaceships
Oh, yeah.
come down. Um, it's there, guys. The transcripts. It got to a point where the astronauts got kind of good at this, and then they sort of had code names, right? During one of the missions, wasn't there a recording or someone overheard them talk about Santa Claus is here, and they
Mhm.
thought that was a code?
That was a code. A lot
Yeah,
of people think so. They saw a UFO and they said, "Oh, we see Santa Claus or something like that." Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But while we're on the subject, I did set aside a quote that I just love this quote, and
yes,
it's from Edgar Mitchell, astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who one of the things he said was while they were up there, he said he never saw an extraterrestrial, but they could tell that they were being watched, and all they could do was pray. Um, so he didn't see, and I don't think most of them actually saw ETs. A lot of them saw
right,
lights and ships. There were a couple of them that were almost smacked in the head with something flying across the surface. Um, there are photos, NASA photos, where you can see extraterrestrials hovering over the astronauts.
yeah,
There are photos that show blue lights which, oh, that's another one, Joey, of my favorite. The blue, there's two more. The blue lights. The astronauts saw these amazing, what people thought maybe they were probes. They don't know what they were, but they look very colorful in the pictures. They didn't hide those.
Mhm.
And there were two sets of missions that saw those things. And you can just, guys, audience members, you can just look up blue lights, NASA images, Google, and they pop up. It's very cool. And that's one of
Oh,
my
read the
favorites.
book.
Read the book.
Read the book.
No, another favorite is that Stargate. There's a picture of what Michael Sala.
Mhm.
I don't really know how to pronounce his name correctly.
I think that's right.
S-A-L-A.
Yeah.
He saw this thing, and in one of the NASA photos, it may have been Apollo 15. It looks just like a Stargate out of the show Stargate. It's
Yeah.
just phenomenal. And it was like, what in the heck is that? Is that what that is? But anyway, getting back to Edgar Mitchell, he says, his advice to people on this subject. As former astronaut Edgar Mitchell once stated, read the books, read the lore, start to understand what is really going on, he says, because there is no doubt that we are being visited. The universe that we live in is much more wondrous, exciting, complex, and far reaching than we were ever able to know up to this point in time. Mankind has long wondered if we're alone in the universe, but only in our period do we really have the evidence. No, we're not alone. This is a man who walked on the moon. He should
Yeah.
know.
And was so moved by the experience that started the Institute for Noetic Sciences,
Yes.
which David Radden is still at, who I deeply respect. Read the book, read the lore. That's what Edgar Mitchell's saying. He's talking about this book. He just didn't know it at the time. So you talk about I found out it was just recently declassified because I was looking further into it. It was a letter written by Robert Oppenheimer and Albert Einstein that
Yes.
talks at length about UFOs and ETs.
Yeah, it's a very long letter, guys. This
Yeah.
thing takes 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. But they did go into some of their own, you know, ideas of what we should do um, if we were to run into such a thing in space. And so it was titled, their paper was titled The Relationships with Inhabitants of Celestial Bodies. It was written in 1947. And they were saying that if we ran into extraterrestrials somewhere, somehow, that it would be necessary to establish communication with them, try to come up with a language that we could understand, um, and that they should hopefully have a psychology that was similar to that of men. At any rate, an international law should make place for should be made place for a new law on a different basis, and it might be called the law among planetary peoples. I just can't get into the whole thing, but they were basically outlining how we should handle meeting extraterrestrials. And they were hoping that they would be like us, but if they weren't, we would need to establish that and, figure out how to deal with them and only use defense. They did say only use defense if it turned out that they weren't friendly, that if they were intelligent beings and they wanted to have a relationship, they basically said we should work with them. But not if they, of course, proved otherwise, and we'd have the right to maybe, defend
Right.
ourselves.
And these are two eminent scientists at the head of so many breakthroughs, allowing so many things, and took the time, like you said, to write this 4-page letter in detail. It was probably about 4 years later that Donald Kehoe, who was ex-Marine, wrote a number of books, but he wrote books and was talking about the Air Force was taking this whole, like, when we colonize and, oh, if we have to eradicate these guys, like, oh, I can't wait, I hope they're hostile. And we still have that rhetoric, the Space Force. It's like something out of a kid's Saturday morning cartoon show. It's
You know, one of the things, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
no,
One of
no,
the
not
things
at all.
One of the things that really bothers me, though, is the idea that every time humanity, it's like everywhere we turn, they just want to fire.
Yeah.
They just want to fight. They just want a war. And one of the theories, for me, I would like to see us go into, be invited into a galactic community and kind of have a Star Trek future. But it's thought that the reason extraterrestrials have not introduced themselves, one reason, may be because we are a warring, primitive, acting world or species, and that they don't want to have anything to do with that. That is that is a theory, and it's a theory that came about because one of the presidents um, is said to have had a meeting with extraterrestrials, and one of the things that they were concerned about was the bombs and the
Yeah.
nuclear weaponry. And they had said they weren't going to let us destroy all life on this planet,
Yeah.
and they wanted to do something about it, and they wanted to step in, and they wanted to maybe make a deal. And it's rumored, um, a whistleblower, came forward and talked about this. So I say rumored, but I don't have the evidence. But that the governments, when they said, we want to do away with those bombs, the governments kind of said no.
Yeah.
Uh, they didn't want to disarm. So it is bothersome to think that maybe they don't introduce themselves because of that. We're already talking about going into space for defense purposes. In fact, uh, Kennedy, that may have been one of his reasons for wanting to go up.
Yeah, and I think he was at least, I think he was a little, at least torn about it, and we're going to get that. But there's been this idea of the subterfuge and all. But I just want to say, here we are, 60 years on from the Cuban Missile Crisis, almost to the year, and that's what it's looking like now. So if the ETs had any hope that we were getting our stuff together, right now where we are with everyone armed and talking about nuclear engagement, I mean, it's breathtaking that we're in 2023 and these world leaders are talking about, well, if you send tanks, then we're going to do this. Oh, if you do that, then we're going to do. I mean, the rhetoric, I would say, even though we're talking about a time of disclosure, which worries me, that the governments are saying, well, we need more money for defense, and we don't just need it terrestrially, we need it out there too, and we're going to get that. But so there was this Brookings report. It was December 1960. So again, this plays into Kennedy, and the Brookings report, folks, is a very, very powerful think tank. And they wrote proposed studies on the implications of peaceful space activities for human affairs. Sounds very promising. Sounds very in line with Oppenheimer, sounds in line with Einstein. But it was a report warning of the danger to society if the truth of ET contact would be made public. In the 1970s, there was a RAND report that said that. And James Fox said that not so long ago, he was invited to lunch with Robert Bigelow. And he said, James, I respect the work that you're doing with your documentaries, but what do you think you're doing? People can't handle this stuff. People shouldn't know about this stuff. We shouldn't put it out there. Fox told him in no uncertain terms, look, we need to know. So there's this huge, you're standing, people like you, Mike Barra, Robert Hoagland, other people like that are kind of standing alone in a field with all of this coming at you to not talk about it, to say you could damage society. You could, I mean, don't you think we're way beyond, humans can handle it? Come
Look at our society. Do you think we can get any more damaged?
on. Right, there you go. Maybe it'll help us, like what Reagan said about, wow, wouldn't it be something? You
Well,
know?
yeah. Yeah, and maybe they're just being lazy. They don't feel like, commissioning another darn report. I don't know. Because
Yeah.
this one was commissioned, just before the astronauts went up too. And the reason the Brookings report came about was because, again, they just didn't know what to do if they ran into ETs. And I think that they already knew that there was, they knew, as I said, that something was going on up there. They know that, lights aren't creating themselves. They know someone's up there. So they wanted a guideline. And unfortunately, the guideline said, don't tell society. But that was the 1960s.
Yeah.
Oh, society can't help it, can't handle it. You know, they're going to have to peel that band-aid off, just pull that band-aid off or rip it off, as they say, and tell people that we're not alone. And it's getting harder. Honestly, it seems to be getting harder to hide anyway, because
Yeah.
the UFOs are increasing. They're everywhere. And not only that, but there are reports of people having contact with extraterrestrials. Now, I don't talk about this with everyone I meet, because I kind of think that you have to prepare people slowly, and at least in some cases. So yeah, I think, yeah, you do have to rip it off, but on the other hand, there are some people you may have to. I was going somewhere with this. My point is, I think we are being educated slowly through the media,
Right.
whereas I think if they just come out and say it, it would help. But up to this point, like when I'm talking to people, I give them baby steps. We have been getting baby steps.
Right.
Now, what's weird about this is there are when I say this, I'm talking about the media. I talk about it in my book, because people have things to identify with when we talk about sci-fi. And there is a report that Gene Roddenberry, it's all over the place now. Years ago, I have never heard anyone talk about it before. I knew about this 30 years ago, where people were saying that he sat in on channeling sessions with extraterrestrials, a lady who was channeling extraterrestrials. These being said that they were in a large ship. They were traveling throughout the galaxy. They were from different worlds, and they were there to help. Now, after that, he created Star Trek. And I just feel like there are ways that advanced beings, be it channeling or who knows, there's some people who think that extraterrestrials are living right here, and here as a means of educating us to the fact that they exist. So my point is, I think that we are being prepared slowly, but it may be at the point where we just need to rip off that band-aid, because people are going crazy. Have you seen some of the videos out there with people
Yeah.
shooting UFOs, and they're like screaming, "Oh my God, what is it?" And it's
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's becoming, I mean, everyone's looking at the sky now. Um, Craig Ansel is with us here for the show. Hi, Craig. So I just want to say, folks, it's obvious. You have the letter from Oppenheimer and Einstein in here. You have the highlights of the Brookings report, and then you have the full text of JFK's Rice Stadium moon speech, where he said, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do other things," which is an interesting statement, right? And do other things, not because they're easy, but because they are hard. And what I was saying to Constance, and what I said in my book review, and I've read that speech and watched tapes of it so many times, he seems to be talking to two different audiences, like Redders often do. That he knew the stakes were there. He knew things were happening. I think he knew things from Ike, who I think that's who you were talking about, met with the aliens, Eisenhower, the Greada Treaty, and all that.
Eisenhower.
Yeah, yeah, and of course Eisenhower talking about the military industrial complex, and Kennedy knew these things, and he went to see Eisenhower. Now the year escapes me, but he made a trip out to California, went to see Eisenhower. The meeting is logged in the Eisenhower library, but the content is not logged. And I think that they were talking about these issues because they were pressing. And it's so interesting when he says, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do other things." Other things after we go to the moon and find some stuff out, you know?
Right, right. Wanting to
Yeah,
be the first there, wanting to claim territory on the moon, wanting to be the first to set up some sort of defense installation up there. Who knows? Who knows? And they did find out some things when they went up there. And the rumor is that they were warned to not come back up there,
yeah,
um, because they may have known the intent of any of the governments here, if they're watching us, and it's obvious that they are, because all of the missions were followed. They knew they were coming. They were sitting lined up. If the report is true, they were lined up at the edge of the crater, just waiting
Yeah.
for them to get there. So they were already watching and knowing. They know that we are a warring species and that we probably want to set up some sort of military whatever on the moon and, blow things up. And they said when they met with the president that we're not going to let you do that. And they don't want us there, don't come back. And one of the theories is that the reason, I may have said this before, the reason that they don't introduce themselves is because of who we are and that we're warring, a warring people. I'm working on another book, and in my new book, I talk about how we might be a quarantined group of a quarantined world, or a
What?
world that's been put off to the side until we can get our stuff together, until we can mature enough to go out there. Because in my metaphysical studies, I've read that not all, but most of the universal peoples are peaceful,
Yeah.
unlike some of the science fiction. Not all of it, but some of it, shows that there's, warring things. I do believe there are two polarities. There's the good and the bad, but for the most part, they're peaceful beings out there, and they don't want us interrupting that and setting off bombs and coming out there and warring and having some sort of domino effect that goes out into the galaxy because of who we are, and that I talk about how they may be in the control of, we keep talking about disclosure. Maybe they're in control of that. Maybe they don't want us to have the disclosure
Yeah. I
yet.
think that is, and I do agree with Shadow that he said it's control and power until the elites are comfortable that they could take advantage. But it seems about 5 years ago, a dialogue with knowledgeable people was going, well, they have to tell us because the ETs are saying now's the time. You do it or we'll do it. So of course we're going to have to see how that plays out. Two things about what you were just saying about Earth being sort of a quarantine planet. Again, Samuel Chong with the Uba prophecy. There are 9 planets where you ascend spiritually, right? Kind of like the chakras, vibrationally, until you reunite with Source. Well, Earth, stop number one. It's preschool. It's preschool. The second thing is, I have a very close friend who I respect a lot. Probably about 10 years ago, he said, I had this out of body experience and I am a prisoner on this planet. I did something really bad on my planet, and that's why I'm here. This is a guy I really respect who doesn't go around like saying kooky nonsense. So I think we're there. So the time we have left. Okay, so the ETs don't want us. They may have warned us off. They were lined up around the craters, Greada Treaty, all of this. We have Artemis 1, right? This is the big recent news. Took some video of the moon, broke the record for the most miles traveled officially anyway, I say, by a human ship. Before I turn it over to you, folks, here are some numbers. Each launch cost $4.1 billion. The total Artemis mission will cost $93 billion by 2025 when they return astronauts to the moon's surface. So let's stop there. What are your thoughts on this Artemis 1 mission?
You know, for me, I have a hard time believing that they're just going up there. Again, they're saying we're going to explore. I think there's a hidden agenda. That's just my little opinion, because that's an awful lot. That's an awful lot of money to just go up there for another exploration when we've been, and we took back samples and all of this stuff. There's something I think else going on that we're not being told, and who knows? You would be surprised that some of the officials may not even be in the know of all of the reasons they may be
Right.
going up there. That's just my guess from looking at the Apollo stuff. They may not know, but it's got to be something else going on, and I hope it's not something horrible. Because are they going up there to explore because they see something coming, on Earth, or at I hope it's just that they're worried about us, turning into an apocalyptic kind of planet, and that's why they want to do it. I hope there's not something, more sinister than that going on. But I think that there's got to be something else. You know, the Apollo 20 hoax was um, the Apollo missions were supposed to end have ended at 17. There was a hoax that they call it. There were three astronauts that are said to have gone up in an Apollo 20 mission. This Apollo 20 mission came about from something they found on the moon with the Apollo 15. Apollo 15 took a picture of a downed, looks like a downed ancient spacecraft. And the story is that they sent up these astronauts another mission to find out what that is. And they found it. They entered it. They found some humanoid beings in there that were not alive, kind of, but intact. Their bodies were intact. And I wonder if Artemis could have some connection to that, or did they learn if that story is true, and there is so much evidence that looks like it could have been.
Hmm.
The only thing that we can't explain really is the Saturn V, how they got up there, because everybody sees the Saturn V going up. This was in the 70s. We can't explain how that mission launched, but the guy who put this online swears that he was an astronaut who went up. And if you look at all the evidence, it looks like all of his pictures are very authentic, including the lunar module that he took pictures in. It looks doesn't I mean, it was an expensive project if it wasn't hoax. My point. So I wonder if they went up there at the Apollo 20, if they really did go up there and find something, and maybe that's why Artemis is going. I wonder if, putting that aside, if there's other things that the Apollo astronauts found that are hidden away that we don't know about, and that's why they're going up.
Right.
Because I can't believe that they're just going up to explore, and they keep saying, we want to put people on the moon. We want to put people on the moon. I don't know. I just think there's more to the story.
Yeah, it certainly does. And what do you make of this? So at the end of January, Administrator for NASA Bill Nelson says, "Look, China's planning 3 missions, and they may claim portions of the moon as their territory." What do you make of that?
So again, that's a whole warring nature. All right. So they're already worried, and it's not just, I think, the U.S. and China, but we're talking about China. They're already worried that we're being outdone.
Right.
All right. They're already fighting, at least in their minds, about who owns the moon, who owns portions of the moon, who's going to get there first. They can't even clean up the United States, and they're fighting over that. They're worried about that. I think that either they know there's something up there besides helium-3, because I don't know how they're supposed to get all that helium-3 back here. Anyway, that they know there's something going on, and they want to beat them there, or they're worried, that they're going to be outdone, and it's all about ego,
Right.
or I don't know. I'm just a little upset that it looks like they want to already. They're starting a fight about this, and could the moon turn and fight over the moon turn into some kind of war? There's in our ancient past, there is some evidence that there was a war on the moon. There are craters on the moon that look like they were created by a nuclear bomb. And there are places here on Earth that looks the same way, that are, ancient, before we ever came near creating a nuclear bomb. And so there's a theory that there was a war of the worlds over the moon's territory way back then, when, and that even Atlantis may have been involved in this. That the moon may have been Atlantis's territory, because the story is that Atlanteans could fly into space. The Indian mythology talks about us flying into space and having bombs. So are we going to do this all over again? Did this happen before? Is this where we're going? Because I can see where our countries would be at war over moon's territory. But it bothers me that they're already competing for something that they don't own anyway. Nobody owns it. And what if they get up there and they find out that there are beings on the moon? Then who owns the moon then? Whose territory is it then? Are they going to go to war with extraterrestrials? Because, like I said a million times, someone is up there moving around. Are they going to go
Yes.
to? them? What if the moon is a foreign country? What if they have, people on there with their own laws and their own civilization, and they're going about their business? And yeah, they're not on the surface maybe, but they could be inside the moon. There have been some that said we are living inside out, that on Earth we're living on the outside, whereas it is beginning to look like that, there are people living inside planets. They're even talking about Mars's moons being hollowed, Phobos and Deimos. Is it Deimos? How you say it? Are hollowed out. That there could be someone in there. So does the moon have a whole civilization inside? And if there is someone there, who owns it? Are we going to go to war with them? First we go with ourselves, and then we go with them. That's my thought.
So the stakes are high,
Yeah,
and we are all very grateful for you for doing this work. So you have you're working on a third book that's about the moon, or it's about more than the moon?
it's about more than the moon. I can talk
Oh
about
wow.
more than the moon, people. I have a lot of thoughts and ideas,
That's great.
and
When is that book slated to come out?
oh God, early next fall. Yeah.
Oh, this coming one or 24?
This coming. Where are we?
Oh, we're in
Sorry. Um,
at the end of January. So this coming fall?
whew, no. January. Yeah, yeah. We're at the end of
Wow.
January, right? No,
Yeah.
I have to count forward.
Wow. So I
All of
hope
2024.
okay, nice.
Gonna-
So well, we are going to look forward to that. In the meantime, if you have big news or things you want to talk about, let me know and come back between now and then. I want to thank you so much for spending the third anniversary episode with me.
Thank you. Thank you so
You're
much for
welcome.
having me. And I have to correct. Yes, it is next fall. I have in my mind, when I pitched this idea to the publisher, I was thinking a year from now, and I just had to stop it. I just came in. This just came in, and I had to stop and think, well, when did they say? Oh, yeah, no. I only have 6 months. I only have 6 months. Yeah.
Oh, so it is fall of
Yeah, it's brand
2023.
new. It's brand new. I
Wow.
still have in my mind that I have a year, and I've got to readjust. Joey, you know how it is when you're writing books.
Yeah, it's
You've got
no,
to
I know.
mentally change. Yeah, so yeah, it is
Yeah.
fall.
All right, awesome. Well, I hope you will come back and join us and debut that book. Send it to me. I'll review it. We'll make a big splash. But thank you for doing this good, important work in such a professional way.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. Congratulations again on your anniversary, and
Thank you.
I hope to be back and not
You
talk
will be.
so much.
No, you talked the perfect amount. I enjoyed it. No, it was perfect. It was perfect. You're getting so at ease, which is terrific. There was a big difference even from September, which
Oh,
is
okay.
good. Yeah, it's good. So, all right, everyone, listen, I'm just going to keep Constance on screen with me. I'll see you next week. We're going to do Sinister Mystery Ministries, Craig and I, Heaven's Gate, and all that. Boy, no wonder this planet is like stop number one on the spiritual journey. So, but anyway, take care, everyone. Have a wonderful night, and I'll see you next week. Hope you're not getting too much snow.